Matthew?
We are going to Capilagio, and that is the jump-off point to head to Tadoussac on the Saguenay River.
Welcome back, and thanks for following. In this episode, we get an early morning start out of Quebec City on a route that will take us to the heart of the Charlevoix region and actually see us under sail, with Mount St. Anne off to our port side, while finishing up the day at the quaint riverside village of Cap-Palago. Yesterday afternoon, we moved the boat through the Marina Lock to just outside of it into the Louise Basin. It was high tide in the river, hence the minimal drop from the marina's water level. We made this move yesterday because we needed to depart before the lock opens this morning.
Oh, what's happening today, Johnny?
Well, it's 5:03 a.m. and we're trying to leave the port of Quebec, but we can't give back our security cards. It's delayed us by about 20 minutes. So if we miss the tide by 20 minutes on the other end, that's why.
Where are we hoping to get to today?
We are going to Capilagio, and that is the jump-off point to head to Tadoussac on the Saguenay River.
Roger that.
So we're pretty excited about it, even though it's this early. You can't tell because we don't live up that excited.
And what's the reason why we have to leave so early?
Because we have to hit tide right going into the next marina. Because if the tide starts coming in and we're fighting it going out, the chop will get really bad. We won't be able to make any way, and it won't be safe for us to enter the marina. And in which case, we'll have to come back here. 70 miles.
Roger that.
Before we get too far downstream, I want to back up to our stop in Sorel and my reference to having been there before. Here's the yarn. I was working as a delivery skipper, tasked with moving the 56-foot, three-masted schooner, the William Tinsley, from Hamilton to Sorel in July 2004. She was a beauty and a brute, but I managed to set her in her slip at Sorel without a scratch. The less than ideal part of the trip was the barrage of law enforcement encounters. We were detained and boarded multiple times by both Canadian and American agencies running land, sea, and air-based surveillance on us. And a canine unit too. By the time we got to Montreal, we'd had about enough harassment and gave the cops in the chopper above something to photograph as we knelt to the east on deck, praying to Allah. Why? Well, because the hillbilly boating community back in Hamilton set a vicious rumor in play that because an Arabic family owned the boat, that they had to have had a terrorist plot in the works. Not cool. Aquastar also stopped in Sorel on her way to the Arctic in 1985. Here, she's locked in ice in Port Credit, proving the integrity of the hull, before heading off on their expedition down the river and then up to Churchill, Manitoba.
It's okay to dream, but get after it.
That's right.
Okay, guys, I think this is it. Another couple of 100 yards and...
Yay!
I made it. Guys, now I feel that I made it.
And then down the river again in 1989 to Leningrad, Russia.
Sailing yacht Aquastar for outstanding transatlantic cruise to Russia, to city of Leningrad.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Please accept it in the name of your yacht club.
The first Canadians to sail a yacht to both of these destinations, transiting the very route we have so far, down the mighty St. Lawrence River. Both of these Aquastar stories are available here on my channel. Again, the reason for early departure times like this is that the tides dictate when our arrival into the next harbor is possible. If we were to arrive on an ebbing tide and against strong winds, it could prove impossible to enter a harbor. Also, as a general rule of thumb, it's okay to leave an unfamiliar harbor in the dark, but it's a really bad idea to enter one in the dark. So, for the safest approach to coastal cruising, it's always best done on a sunup to sundown schedule. In addition to weather apps, we had an invaluable cruising guide called Down East Circle Route that was extremely accurate and gave us local knowledge that went a long way in seeing us safely into our target ports each day. And we also had hard copies of the Canadian Hydrographic Survey publication called The Sailing Directions and the Tide and Current Tables and the Atlas of Tidal Currents. All are absolutely essential for safe passage here. Looking at current flow at Capilagel, you can see that within the first hour after low water, the currents are as high as 5 knots just offshore. So that's a bit too fast for a safe harbor entry. But then when you look at the currents 1 to 2 hours after low tide, they become 3 knots and less, which is much safer for a low horsepower boat like ours. Mesmerizing distant horizons lie ahead, including the very eerie phenomenon known as an inferior mirage.
End of the world there, see that? Yep. It's bizarre. We're gonna fall off the edge. Exactly.
An inferior mirage occurs when there's a dense layer of cold air sitting above the line of sight, with a layer of less dense, warmer air below the line of sight. So, in this case, the water appears to have been replaced by the sky. Optically, what's happening is the skylight is refracting up off the water. And since warm air rises and cool air sinks, the air layers mix and these inferior mirages disappear. And now it's the Laurentians, where some of the crew ripped it up this past winter at Mount Saint Anne, Quebec. Here's a peek. Meanwhile, back on the river, One of the most interesting aspects of this region is its variety of cities, towns, villages, and seemingly infinite mountainous horizons. Hey now, there's some current for you. That marker is working overtime just to stay in position. Anyways, today we started out in a major Canadian city, and tonight we'll see us into one of the smallest villages on the river, where the loudest sounds we'll hear overnight will likely be the cacophony of our collective soft palate vibrations. Oh dear. Following a day of mixed weather and epic scenery, we slipped quietly into the marina at Capilego. Tomorrow, we make for Tadoussac and enter the Saguenay-Saint-Laurent Marine Park, home to more than 2,200 species and frequented by many whales and dolphins. Captain Matt here. Thanks for watching, everyone, and be sure to like and subscribe to my channel to get notifications on the many episodes yet to come on our expedition to Cape Breton Island.